All right, so welcome to Transitions, where the uniform comes off and the real fight begins. Today we have a very special guest, a friend of mine. Mike, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Michael Gonzalez, and I'm happy to be here with you, man.
Awesome, man, awesome. So, Mike, what branch were you?
I was in the Marine Corps.
You retired, right?
I did.
What did you do? 20?
I did 19 years. I retired early. I had some issues come up with my knees and my ankles, so I went through the med board process, and I ended up getting out early.
Just getting old, right?
Yeah, that happened since. I'm telling you.
Awesome, man. So we're just gonna jump right into it. So I already explained the podcast. It's all about your transition. What's something that nobody tells you when it comes to getting out the military?
Um, it's interesting because I think people tell you a lot of things, and nobody tells you how you're gonna feel. I think that's the big difference. I think people can share their thought process and opinions, and in most cases, it either bounces off of you, or you take it kind of like a grain of salt. Like, okay, when I cross that bridge, I cross that bridge.
Yeah.
But regarding when you step out of the military, that feeling is it's different. Um, Between it being the Wild West or the unknown, I think that's something that is undescribable, and that's when you kind of hear like the echoes of what people said in the past. When they apply, it starts to come back to you, and you start to kind of apply it if it needs to be.
Would you say the uniform gives you identity?
Identity, purpose. You know, I say while we were in, but while I was in at least, and I say for a lot of my buddies, we don't. We it's a job. We go in, we do our job. We have our routine, our thought process, and we do it for not only ourselves but for the guys that we're serving with. Um, when you step out of that, it's kind of like, and now what? Who am I doing this for?
Yeah.
That's a unique pill to swallow when you step out and trying to figure out, what's the next step.
Yeah.
What you need in your career.
That's where I get the punchline from. That's when the real fight begins.
Mhm.
It's interesting, man. So, at what point within this transition, maybe early stages, late stages, at what point did you realize, damn, this isn't going to be easy?
To be honest with you, the first time I attempted to do my resume, when I went through steps and taps, the courses that prep you for your transition as you get ready to step out, there's a lot of information that's kind of being thrown at you, and in most cases, it's to the point is it's to the point where you don't know what you're going to do with all this information until you actually cross that bridge.
Right.
When I had to convert my skill set, almost 20 years in the military or in the Marine Corps, with my background being infantry, what are the stereotypical jobs that are out there for me? And between law enforcement, security, stuff like that, that's usually the first thing that comes off the top
Go
of my
to.
mind.
Hmm.
And most guys go through regarding their transition, and I made it a point to kind of not lose that, but translate that in a way that I can apply it to. And translating that was probably the toughest part of my transition, as for making it make sense to something that was on the outside.
Did you feel like you lost anything once that uniform came off? I mean, aside from that check that hits,
That
everybody has that reality when it doesn't hit. But did you feel like you lost anything within self?
there, people say that they lose purpose. I think yes, in one aspect, you kind of do lose purpose. It's kind of undescribable. The the impact that you're making while you're in service, whether you believe it or not, is huge. And the scope and scale of what you do while you're in service is also, huge. You're a player in such a large game of, world life, and you can positively impact so many people. Whether it's here within the U.S., within the service, or even abroad. I still keep in contact with my interpreter from Iraq, and that was from 15 years ago.
Wow.
So it's such a unique um, experience while you're in, and then when you step out, you kind of lose the scale. You lose that. I took a note of it on my end. It was like the impact that you could make essentially, uh, and the importance of your role and what you're doing and who you're representing at that time. So that's the one thing I felt that I lost on the way out. My purpose was different. The purpose that I kind of shifted was to take care of me, to focus on my next step, not to let my past define me,
Yeah.
essentially.
That's interesting. I had a conversation with a veteran yesterday who still He's been out a little less than a year, and he explained the same thing. He said losing that brotherhood, losing, when you get out, all your friends are still in, so it's very hard to network, or you now have to find a new network. You know what I mean? So I mean that's interesting, man. So real quick, let's say
Very
like
interesting.
3 to 5 minutes. Just what's your military story? Like, how old were you when you went in? What was your a matter of fact? Why'd you even join? Like, what pushed you to that point?
I have so my story is kind of fun, and I say fun to me in a sense. I my mother was in the army. She was in the Army Reserves in Puerto Rico. My uncle was in the Marine Corps, and I had family throughout the service. My great grandfather was in the Army as well. Um, so that was something that was common, and at least I knew that I can lean on them regarding their experience. Uh, I I would say I was an interesting kid growing up regarding the circles that I was around. I grew up in New York. I moved to Pennsylvania as I was a teenager, and I went through high school up there. So New Yorker coming to Pennsylvania and being out there in the boonies was a unique
It's very different.
transition. Yeah, it's like you from the city to Fern Gully all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and it was something that was a calling. And then the common thing that I hear with recruiters is that especially Marine recruiters, that they see you and say you don't have what it takes, and then they leave. That's pretty much what my recruiter did for me. And between 9/11 that happened when I was in high school to the time that I was able to join, I joined at 17. I was itching. I was chasing the recruiter essentially, like, hey,
Yeah.
I want to get in. And
Were you were you as a child, was you like always into like action or trying to get into something like hobbies, outdoors, like
I was into action. I enjoyed being out, especially with my cousins. I grew up in we had like four corners of that same block, kind of all surrounded with our family. So we were always outside playing and doing things, playing video games, and seeing. At the time, big role model in my life, military wise, was my uncle because he was in the Marine Corps and then he worked for the NYPD. Watching that demeanor and it's almost like the respect that was commanded based off of just presence alone
yeah.
was something that was very appealing to me. And between presence and reputation, I think that's what brought me into the fold regarding the Marine Corps.
Was it him that had that influence over you to say do the Marines, or did you go see other recruiters?
Oh, I saw everybody and their grandmother.
Did you?
Yeah, and I saw the first recruiter I saw was the Marine Corps. He made it a point to kind of avoid me, so I made it a point to see him first.
Right.
And when I brought him over to my house to sign paperwork, my mom almost lost it on me. And granted, my mom having a brother in the Marine Corps, her being in the Army, she's like, "No, you're not going to the Marines. You're going to."
She
check all
said
the
no?
Other. Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting, kind of reliving that thought process now, because you know you would expect that that being something important that happened in their lives, they're like, "Hey, you're not going to go," and it's because of 9/11 and everything that was going on. So I
Yeah.
understand that. But I was firm on it, and then the condition that she gave me was, talk to all the recruiters and see what other options, and hopefully you can change your mind. I saw all the other recruiters did not change my mind at one point, but just to kind of balance the scales on my end, in order for me to join early at 17, I needed parental consent.
Yeah.
She signed the paperwork right then and there, and I joined the delayed entry program.
Man, that's I'm surprised she said no with her
Yeah.
being military herself, man. That's funny, man. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool. So is there anything while you serve? So you did 19 and change. You joined at 17. That's early. How long you been out now?
I've been out since 2024, 2023.
Okay.
So about 2.5, 3 years.
Would you consider yourself someone who's still in transition?
100%.
Yeah.
And it's just because of the statistically, we change jobs once we transition out at least 2 to 3 times within that first year to two window, and I'm already on my third job on the transition now. The biggest thing that I feel that with each job that I've come across, it's a brand new experience. Me understanding the thought process, quality of life, the culture there. Those are all things that I kind of weigh in my I have a scale that I weigh. Essentially, it's like if the culture is great, it's okay if the job sucks. We can
Yeah,
we can we can ride this out together in one way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. We'll figure it out. That's kind of where we thrive on as veterans. But the rewarding piece that I'm looking for, and the job satisfaction, like I said, capturing that scope and scale that we did while we were still in service. I feel like I'm still looking for that satisfaction.
So, having done your time in service, when was that focal point that you knew I'm getting out? Like, when was it? Was there a point where it was like it's indefinite? I'm getting out. There's no turning back. I got to prepare to be a civilian.
Regarding, so I think there's a realization like with time, like as you're going through the service, within, and I say for me on mine, within being in the infantry, you know, your body and what you physically can do through those time frames is a big driving factor of what you can and cannot do and how far you can actually go. Just because the it's a very demanding MOS. You're always out there. Once I started to get a little bit older, and my knees started to hurt a little bit more, and I had to get some things checked out, and I've realized how often I was being pulled away from the actual, and I say the fight, the day to day grind. With me and my Marines, I started to realize like, hey, this may be an opportunity, or this may be something that might get cut short. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I fell down. I was on a ship. We were doing pre-deployment training for the 13th BU, I think. And we were hitting some rough seas, and I was walking through, and I hit a door knocker. And as I hit the door knocker, I fell down.
Kneecap?
No, the little knee knockers.
Yeah.
And it was out of the worst places too. It was by the bathroom.
Oh Lord.
So I hit a knee knocker, and as I fell down, I fell into the pusher position, but the boat was coming back up, and I
Oh.
felt my elbow pop. And that's a whole funny
So
story.
you was on a small boy,
Yeah,
like
so
a frigate
I
or
think it was on the Comstock, an LHD,
LHD?
or something
Yeah.
like that. But I felt my elbow pop, and granted, it was the pre-deployment act. We were maybe 2 months out from actually deploying, and my elbow swelled up. I was still on ship. I went to medical, and we were in the rough seas, and they were trying to take X-rays and stuff like that. They didn't strap down on the machine. The machine came down on top of me. It was like the unfortunate. What is it? What's that?
A series of unfortunate events.
One right after the other, and I was
Jeez.
like, "What the hell, doc?" Long story short, my elbow was fractured, and at that point, I was like, "Okay, fracture's not that bad. Like I'm not broken, but you're not taking me off this deployment. Like I'm not going."
So you was dedicated.
100%.
That's
So I kind of headed off to the side. I rode out the next 2 months, and I did most of my self rehab on the boat. But at that point, I remember getting to the point where just before we were deploying, I went to go pick up my daughter, and I couldn't lift her above, essentially here.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, there's other things more important than actually the deployment side when I can do certain things.
How many deployments did you do?
4.
4?
Mhm.
How long were they roughly?
Or about 6 to 9 months.
6 to 9 months. That's a stretch, man.
Yeah.
That's a stretch. But the brotherhood that you gain while you're doing that is priceless, man.
Yeah.
For the moments and the people that you meet. That's. Is there anything while you was in service that you were actually known for?
It's funny. That was probably one of the hardest questions that I didn't necessarily have the answer to. I knew what I feel like that's a two-sided question. Like I knew what I could do and I was capable of doing and what I was known for getting things done. The Marines that I've come across in the past, from being the life of the party, being super enthusiastic, to being the enforcer of that's the best way I can say it. Like I love being an NCO, a young corporal, and the NCO mafia, being able to, we used to call it rolling up.
Yeah.
We would roll up on people and get things done regarding the battalion,
Right.
within the guidelines and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I was known for just being that go-to guy to get things done.
So you got things done.
Yeah.
You was the guy. That's how I feel like I am now. At work,
Yeah, I
man.
mean, you are, man.
But I try. So so you've been out for about 3 years now, right?
Mhm.
Is this civilian life anything that you pictured while you were in?
I honestly, I couldn't tell you what exactly I pictured while I was in. The best way that I can tell you that is, your mind changes so many times while you're in service as to what you could do, thinking about whether the grass is greener on the other side. I remember getting back from Iraq with me and my peers and my buddies, and we were swearing up and down we're going to open up a nightclub and do our own thing. And
That's
the
that
benefits and
deployment
go to-
money.
Yeah, it was the wildest thing in the world. And as we were all, because everybody leaves at different times, as everybody's slowly stepping out, you start realizing like, man, we're not really. There was no real plan in place, or we're not actually doing what we
It was
said
just
we were gonna do.
ideas,
It was
yeah.
ideas, like farts in the wind, essentially. That's the best way that I can say it. And now that it's kind of coming full circle, after each reenlistment and getting closer to that edge of going, I was like, what's the next step that I'm going to do? I couldn't really tell you. I had the idea at the time,
Yeah.
but no real plan in place to actually get things done, because the military was always the option for me.
I know that there's a major misconception with a lot of service members that I served. I'm getting out, and all these employers are going to want me just because I'm a veteran. How often do you hear that, or did you have that idea when you were getting out?
I Because of my MOS, I felt like I had to try harder to convey my skill set and my capabilities and apply it to something that in corporate America may not be something directly you can kind of relate it to. I feel regarding their, the there's a half truth to it. Yeah, businesses want us. They you say, and I say businesses want us regarding the stereotype. You're in the military, you're screened, you have these things that the average bear in the normal world doesn't have. As for clearances, you're essentially vetted. You would assume you would have more responsibilities and capabilities to bring to the table to a business.
Hmm.
The things that I felt that as veterans transition out fail is in relaying that information, translating it the right way to make it impactful, and or they completely negate everything that they've done in the past and just say, hey, this is a blank slate, this is the new me, and that's where I think that's a disservice for the guys that are transitioning out.
I can agree. You said your uncle went from the Marines to NYPD, right?
Mhm.
Um, why didn't you follow those footsteps, or did you want to, or was that like I think everyone has a default to, okay, I'm getting out, this I'm gonna do this. What was why didn't you follow his footsteps, and did you have any default plan like everyone says I'm gonna be a mailman, they'll take me, I'm gonna be law enforcement, they'll take me, things like that.
There's I think there's two sides to the coin. Like my uncle paved the path and opened doors for not only his kids but all our entire family to walk through. Same thing with my mother and everybody else. Pursuing that same path, you're gonna get similar to same results. As I stepped out, I knew the law enforcement was an option, an easy option for me to go to, but it was still within a comfort zone. I wanted to do something different. And I say I wanted to do something different in the sense of there's a comfort zone as for, yeah, we can strive in chaos within the infantry. I've been living in that realm the last 19 years. Coming out here, it's also a different aspect. There's also a time that I feel that I need to be able to wind down to be there for myself and my family. I can't stay at that sprint the rest of your life. You're gonna burn yourself out.
Yeah, definitely.
So I took the opportunity to kind of step outside of my comfort zone, and I strive to do something a little bit different. I went from looking at potential security contracts, law enforcement, so on and so forth, or being a contractor, to looking at sales, recruiting, talent management, HR stuff. Because I also had a background in recruiting as well as training within the Marine Corps. So I wanted to leverage those skill sets first and see if I can carve my own path and open up new doors so my kids can potentially follow in that path. They can see a variety of different ways to success because there's a million ways to do it.
Yeah,
This is
definitely.
new paths.
What was the hardest part about getting out, or the hardest reality maybe?
Hmm. The the hardest reality for me was there's a difference in culture and work ethic. Culture and work ethic in the sense of what you're used to within being in the service and everybody being able to, or you have the support of your command, of your unit, of your service members to the left and right of you to reach that goal. And when you step out of the military, you don't have that infrastructure anymore. It's just you. So you went from everybody working together to accomplish your mission to now you, and your mission is to get your stuff together and get ready for that next step. And now
Definitely.
that you don't have it, what are you going to do?
During this transition, was there ever a moment that you felt like it was like something could potentially break you, or get you to that point, um, get you to that point of being like that nervous, um, because life is coming full circle?
There's We set expectations for ourselves as we transition out. Well, I'll say is I set an expectation for myself as I got out, and as I'm looking and as I'm being, you know, proactive as I can be. based off of what I have been exposed to. Um, by setting those expectations, I want to achieve them. And when you don't achieve them, or you don't get that call back, or you submit that resume and they decide to go with somebody else, or you sit through an interview and you feel like everything's gone well and you gave it your all, and then they say, well, I appreciate your time, but we're not going to go down this path. Those are all kind of gut checks,
Yeah.
throughout that process. And you know, experiencing failure, and I say failure in a sense, or these speed bumps. I say a failure because that's what it feels like at the time. Once you overcome them, they become speed bumps. But experiencing that gut punch it's a real eye opener of like, okay, now what? I
Yeah.
put in a lot of work and effort, and now that's go wasted. Do you dwell on it or do you keep moving?
During the transition, do you feel okay? So while you're in, you're pretty much stable. You have income that's coming in. You have your job. You know what you're gonna do. You even have the resources that you know for a fact you can fall back on. You can call your command. You got different resources that are readily available to you. During the transition, sometimes you lose certain things that maybe an active duty member may have, and you're not aware of the resources on the outside. Was there anything in between being in and getting out that may have affected your relationships with like friends or family?
I think the whole transition itself is a turbulent time. And I say by turbulent time is that the inevitable is coming.
Hmm.
You're getting opinions and perspectives and thought processes from a million different people in every direction, but none of it is you. And whatever thoughts and opinions you may have, either you voice them or haven't voiced them, or when you haven't voiced them, you're keeping them internal and you're kind of struggling. You're kind of riding that roller coaster. You're trudging through the snow essentially.
Right.
And when you have voiced them, what do you actually really know? It's kind of like the next question I ask. Like, I feel this way, but is that actually valid? That whole process can be very turbulent, and in my end, it affected a lot of my relationships regarding friends and family. I became, how would you say?
Would you say you were closed off,
I
or
was 100% internal. I was just like just to focus, and I kept my head down just to kind of trudge through that process. Um, it there was definitely, it definitely affected my friends and family. The best way that I reassured them as I was transitioning is I'm working on figuring it out.
hmm
Didn't have the words to actually kind of relay it, or at some point, you don't want to tell, I say in every way, shape, or form, somebody doesn't want to tell somebody I don't know, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know how to get there.
I'm lost?
Yeah,
I'm lost.
that's
Yeah.
that's a thing that I think everybody struggles with. But by acknowledging like, hey, this is tough, and saying, where can I get the right resources? Who can I talk to? Who's a relevant source? I'm not, I say whenever I do my briefs for my classes here is, one broke person talking to another broke person equals two broke people. When you want to talk to
Yep.
somebody, you're looking for a mentor that's going to be able to kind of guide you and has a similar story or background that you do. So
Was there a pivotal moment where things changed, where that light came on, and you seen the light at the end of the tunnel? Um, to feel that you were now reestablished, now finding myself? Was there a moment, um, an awakening or something like that?
I think there's these glimpses of hope. There's these glimpses of hopes that come through where, and I'll use like going to career fairs and stuff like that. And I'll back it up even more. I was doing an internship with Recruit Military, and as part of the internship, I'm there screening veterans that are transitioning out, or guys that have already been out, regarding their resumes and stuff like that. And here I am, still trying to figure out my resume, and I have my resume in my hand, and then I'm also looking at theirs, and I'm like, man,
Their
theirs
resume
was a
was
lot worse than I am right now. But look, man, we're gonna take care of you on our end. Like,
yeah.
we'll provide you with the tools. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, if he's here and he's been in since 1775 or whatever it is, and he has all these skill sets. Like, I had guys that were like nuclear engineers that just couldn't put their thoughts on paper. And that's okay. It's part of the process. But tying into specific resources and organizations is what helps kind of reassure you on certain things, and then seeing the yield of the results. Going to hiring fairs and stress testing your plan, going out there and after you've spent the time, you use the resources, you use your mentors and the guidance you've been given to apply it to get a positive response, a callback, an ad on LinkedIn. Those are all glimpses of hope of like, okay, I'm on the right path.
Definitely, definitely. What would you say are three common mistakes that you may see other transitioning service members, or maybe you may have may have fell into one of these mistakes, what would you say 3 common mistakes to avoid during the transition?
3 common mistakes I feel I've made, and I've seen, like, my, the guys that I've worked with, my clients that I've come across make, is they don't understand the scale and scope of what they've done. They minimize themselves,
Hmm.
and I say they minimize. I think every branch of service kind of sucks in one way, shape, or form when it comes down to saying, "Hey, good job. Thank you. I appreciate for you coming to work today."
Hmm.
I those compliments don't come often in the military, and when they do come, it's like, okay, I'm getting steak and lobster for what? Like, where are we going? Why are we deploying? What inspection is coming up?
You're
Type of thing.
right.
Those are all,
Troubles on the way.
yeah. So that's the thought process. So when I'm me as a service member, as I was transitioning out, me being able to appreciate and capture the scope and scale of everything that I've done, both major and minor, both primary billets and B billets, secondary duties, and so on and so forth. All those things are important, and you shouldn't just leave them away. The goal should be to translate everything that you've done in a way that you put time and effort and sweat into those things, that yields something on the back end, especially if you frame it in the right sense.
Definitely.
So that's one of the things that I feel like we don't do very well. Communication is another key thing that I think we can do better on the way out, is by if you need help, ask for help.
Hmm.
Um, by asking and putting yourself out there, yeah, it leaves you vulnerable, but it leaves you vulnerable, but it gives you an opportunity to essentially grow. Um, and then the last thing I feel like uh, we can improve on across the board is the expectations. Setting these expectations, expectation management is what I call it when I'm talking to my clients. But the what you feel you deserve or you earn, or what role you should be in, compared to what you're actually in, are two different things. And it's okay to feel this way. Understand that you may be at this current level. Figuring out that gap is going to
Hmm.
be the biggest thing. Like, my gap currently right now is this education, pursuing some type of additional, whether it's collegiate or training or certification wise, that's going to help me grow within a specific job field.
Right.
Me knowing that I'm working on my end to kind of help fill that gap within my defense. So
Yeah, that's a good answer, man. What are 3 tips that you can give someone who's about to get out, who's about to ETS? Like, I mean, powerhouse things that may have changed the trajectory to your transition.
whatever time that you oh time, whatever time that you think you have, cut it in half.
Mm.
And the reason why I say that is, for I made it, what my transition I shaped because of the successes and failures of guys that have gotten out prior to me.
Mm.
I've seen guys, work to the very last day that they get out and then start their transition process, and they end up, on the brink of being homeless,
Right.
riding an emotional roller coaster that isn't necessary. I've seen guys that have taken 6 months to get out and not realize that, you know, the I say the flash to bang. So when you're applying for other jobs on the outside, 30 to 60 days at a bare minimum, or 30 to 90 days at a bare minimum, from you submitting your application to potentially getting a call back, is going to be the window, and potentially longer depending on the position.
Hmm.
Them hoping that they were going to walk into something falls through because of that. Now they have to figure out 3 gaps. So that's financial and stress that they put on themselves.
Yeah.
So I think overall, just taking that time for you about a year out and just start chipping away at that big, it's a big thing that you're doing, the transition. Taking it piece by piece, leveraging every opportunity that's out there. Yeah, you can do your capstone or your bare minimum requirements just to get your signature signed, but there's so much more out there to it.
Yeah.
That signature is that bare minimum requirement is going to get you that kind of result. Uh, Leverage all the tools and the classes that are out there for you and such.
Definitely. Um, are there any major resources that assisted you with this transition, and just the powerhouses? I mean, the things that really help push you in whatever direction you was going in or wasn't planning on going in but ended up in. Who would you say, or what would you say are those resources that helped out?
The resources that I use, so on my transition out, I leveraged. So I'm blessed in a sense to be here in Norfolk, and have the infrastructure of all the bases that are around. Each of the bases have their own taps, their SEPs briefs that they do, where they help guys that are transitioning out I made it a point to hit each individual one just because I knew for the Army, they have a specific way of processing people out. The Air Force has a specific way of
Mm-hmm.
processing people out, as well as the Navy/Marine Corps. So I made it a point to kind of go and kind of gather as much information that I could. So I leveraged the TAP resources and the base resources 100%. I also leveraged SkillBridge. I was able to SkillBridge with recruitmilitary.com. I did a 6-month skill bridge with them, and I targeted that specific skill bridge on my end because I knew the hardest part for me was going to be translating my skills from military into English, and their focus is specifically on transitioning service members and veterans, helping them translate their skill set into something that can relate to, and you can actually relate to and tie them into jobs on the outside. So I wanted to be in that gray area where I can see what resumes were built, what businesses were looking for, so I can position myself in the right way. And then I leveraged the MPP program. The MPP program, there was a mentor that I had here on the naval base that the benefit that I got with them is that they were a sounding board to my plan. They were able to stress test my plan. As I said, we all come up with the best plans. And you've ever set a plan and somebody looks at you like you're kind of crazy, like what makes you think that was okay regarding your plan?
Right.
He gave me the honest perspective. It's like, hey, this is a good plan from point A to point B. What are you going to do to fulfill or to execute that plan? What are you going to do to execute that plan? What are your gaps? What are you lacking? What do you need to do? And that was a part of the most beneficial part is just having that feedback and that conversation between them and then recruit military.
Out of all the things that we have discussed, is there one in particular that you wish you knew before you got out?
In particular, regarding
Regarding the transition, like if there was just one thing that might have helped you, that was the turning point. If there was just that one moment um, that helped you when you was getting out, and you wish you knew that earlier, what would it have been?
I think it was being okay with not knowing and asking for help.
Mm.
And I say in a sense asking for help as you're transitioning out and you're going to these classes. There's going to be a flood of resources. There's a million organizations that offer the same or similar services across the board. If that gets kind of dumped into your inbox and you're sorting through and you're talking to all these people, you spend a lot of time spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
That was the frustrating part to me. The biggest thing that I felt that I got the most out of is having that one-on-one conversation with my MPP rep, as well as the guys from Recruit Military, where I can say, hey, this is what I have and this is what I'm struggling with. And taking their feedback and implementing it, regardless of how I felt about it. Taking their feedback and be like, okay, let me test this theory to see if it works based off of what they're saying. And if it doesn't work, now I can modify it. I can add my 2 cents to it. I think that back and forth allowed me the opportunity to kind of test things and see things that were working and apply them when I needed to. And that's kind of what got me the opportunities that I did when I stepped out.
I think Recruit Military might have been your number one resource.
Recruit Military is a great resource regarding how I utilize it on the way out. Being specifically positioning myself where I can see, I can be in the operational process, seeing resumes coming in, thinking that I was lost in the sauce, and seeing this guy, that has 10 times the more skill set and the education than I do, just be even more lost in the sauce. Like I felt bad for the guy.
Yeah.
And because of my thought process regarding that Recruit Military, saw that as an opportunity to kind of leverage that and kind of move me into another program, their MBA program, to help manage and establish within in Atlanta. And that was another unique transition because now I'm working with a completely different demographic of veterans that are transitioning.
And their Recruit Military is nationwide. Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man. That's awesome for whoever's watching this. They can utilize
the unofficial
it as well.
plugs, but everybody has the feedback that I've gotten, like Chris Stevens and Lucas within the team. Those were my go-to guys to kind of have the candid conversation of me from service member to service member. This sucks. What do I do? And If I suck, just tell me I suck now so I can figure it out and be okay. We don't have to dance around it with fiery words. And they were pretty upfront with me.
That's cool, man. I got some rapid fire questions that we'll go through. So your first job after the military?
So my first job after the military, I was a sales director for a company here in Norfolk.
You liked it?
It was fun. it was the job. I was considering moving down to Florida, and the opportunity came up, and I couldn't say no. The pay was good. The environment was fast paced. Another thought process on why I joined that organization is because it was going to put me in a business mind, a business perspective. I was in charge of developing their entire sales process,
Wow.
refining the process, and then tying them into military contracts as well.
Do you feel like that lined up with your purpose now?
The the Marine Corps set me up with Marine Corps provided me a set of tools. I feel like Liam Neeson. Um, the tools, like when I went through recruiter school, the ability to kind of talk and sell and have that meaningful, structured, meaningful, purposeful conversation was super important. And going into the sales side of the house, I understood that it was the same. Just you're talking about a different product.
Right.
And as long as the product is solid and established, and you're not doing anything else, it should sell itself. Essentially, you just need to put the face behind it and the enthusiasm.
Right.
And that put more wind in my sails, essentially, to kind of pursue the route that I'm going through now within the company that I'm at.
What's one word that you would use to describe your transition?
An emotional roller. One word is an emotional roller coaster. I need to put that together. It's been a ride, man. It's honestly been a ride, and ups, downs, sideways. I'm grateful for the ride that I've been on. I've been blessed to kind of, like I said, from being in uniform on a Friday, stepping into a suit and tie as a sales director for a company on Monday, to have that opportunity, to explore that opportunity and figure out, like, okay, this is great. What else is out there?
Right.
Like, that first mission was accomplished, that first big leap, and now we continue to move forward.
During your transition, is there one maybe quote or one set of advice that someone had gave you along the way, maybe a mentor or something that you can share with the people to assist them with their transition?
Be you is the best way that I can say. Like, be yourself. Be yourself. Be true to what you do. Don't let the environment around you dictate what what you're capable of. Good environment, bad environment. The good environment should reinforce you. Toxic environment should reassure you to say, okay, this isn't something that I need to be in, and it's okay to say no. That's another thing. That I feel like we're, as transitioning service members, telling somebody no, or telling an organization no, or understanding that line of, like, hey, we've always been like a yes sir type of thing. You can tell somebody no and figure out another way to get to your end results on the back end. That you add value on. That's another thing that I would add is, you are valuable in every way, shape, or form, especially if you're there for a purpose and you have intent in what you're doing.
That's awesome, man. So I know you work with TSMs, but what would you say to someone going through it right now? Is there something that you find yourself repeating to the different clients that you have?
Yeah. So with me in the NPP program, I have the opportunity to kind of come across guys in every stage of the transition, whether they're over a year out or less, 10 days out. As I have the conversation with them, the biggest thing that I see myself repeating over and over again is understanding there's the scope and scale of what they've done, whether they've been in for 4 years or they've been in for 20 years. Understanding the scope and scale of what you've done and being able to relay that information. So you're almost relearning about yourself as you get ready to go out, because it's been a blur. You've been trudging along, getting these certs, getting these training, knocking out all this OJT. If you were to take a quick pause and look back and say, explain to me what you've done, that's probably the hardest thing. They kind of, you have to, like, pull that, you're pulling teeth at that point when you're asking that specific question.
Yeah.
So I break down each individual point of their career, whether it's a duty station, whether it's a schoolhouse, and I tell them, hey, you've done this. There's also documentation that supports that. How do you say it in your
Articulate
English? How do
it.
you articulate it?
Yeah.
Yes. And that helps them grasp the concept, and that takes a 1-page resume with 3 or 4 lines, and it blows it up to 2 pages, completely filled with detail. Capturing that is, I feel like this is the most important thing, and that's something that I continue to repeat, and I focus on with my guys that are going through the program.
All right. Hypothetically speaking, you're shopping at Walmart, you bump into a veteran, they say, "Man, I'm a vet and I feel completely lost." What's one tip of advice that you would give that person as far as to to help them feel reassured about the transition. Because we all know transition is not overnight. It doesn't happen when you leave the military. It doesn't. It starts, I want to say, about 18 months out,
Yeah.
almost a year out. That transition begins. But what would you tell a vet? You bump into Walmart. He says, "Man, I'm completely lost. I have no idea what to do."
My next question is like, where are you trying to go, and what's stopping you from getting there?
Yeah.
Because knowing where you're going, and I relate this I use this example with my clients all the time, is like having a target at the very end gives you an opportunity to know what you're shooting at, know what you're moving towards, or what you're getting ready to engage. By not having any real target, you're floating around. You're gonna
Right.
start chasing your tail. So in order for, if you feel lost, let's set a goal, even if it's a short term goal. Let's set that goal and let's work to get to that point. Let's identify what do we need to do to get there, and let's plan in reverse so we can kind of help close that gap. And then once you're getting ready to hit that goal, reestablish a further goal, challenge yourself. That's another thing that kind of can throw a veteran off is whether they're settling for what they feel is they're capable of doing would be easy, or what they're capable of doing, which is
Right. That's
just
that
something.
level that you were speaking of earlier. Yep. I definitely agree, man. I definitely agree. So, real quick, man, to TSM that's watching this, what would be your final words to them? They got 3 months till they get out. What would your advice would be to that 3 month vet?
Stay motivated. Stay motivated. Don't When you find something that you want to get into, don't just do the surface level research, dive into it. Find every aspect, every detail that you can about that role, that position, the school, whatever it may be. Once you've done all your research and you sunk your teeth into that topic, then set the goal. That goal is going to give you a full understanding of, like, if I do this, it's going to get me closer to my goal. And as you come across and you continue to hit these milestones, you're going to start understanding, okay, I need to sink my teeth into this new topic in order to get me that much more closer. um, by doing surface level research and surface level exploration when it comes down to career and opportunities, you're going to get surface level results. If you dive in deeper, you're going to be more successful and understand the full picture of what's out there for you.
So do your research.
1,000%.
1,000%, man. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. This is Transitions, where the uniform comes off and the real fight begins. Mike, I want to thank you for your time,
I
man.
appreciate you, man.
And I appreciate, all the advice. It's very, very valuable because it is very scary going into those unknown waters. Anybody that asks me, I tell people straight up, it don't matter how long you serve, getting out is just as scary as going in. You don't know what to expect going in. You don't know what to expect going out, man.
Get comfortable
But
with that feeling, but it'll
yeah,
be all right. It'll
yeah,
be all
man.
right.
So, but